Okay, so scattered throughout the entire history of this holy game of American football, there have been countless players that have stood out amongst their peers for several different reasons. Some of those guys were overwhelmingly dominant or unfathomably dreadful at their craft, but others, well, others were just plain weird. So I'm not going to waste any more of your time. In this video, I thought it would be interesting to look at several players that truly had one-of-a-kind, bizarre NFL careers, and I thought we'd start this video off with a dude that most of you are probably already familiar with to some extent. Nick Foles. So all the way back in the distant year of 2012, after the death of Christ, the Philadelphia Eagles were being ran by health and safety expert Andy Reid. And Andy was on the tail end of his coaching tenure in Philadelphia, and basically decided to do everything he could to leave his grubby fingerprints on this organization for the future. So going into the 2012 draft, although the entire Eagles front office allegedly had Kirk Cousins as the best quarterback prospect available for the Eagles, Andy Reid decided to steal the driver's seat and made the greatest decision in Eagles history, because all of this mayhem culminated with the colossal decision for Philadelphia to draft future Eagles legend Marvin McNutt. Oh, and some dude named Fletcher Cox, and Nick Foles too. And for the first year of Foles' career, he barely played behind animal rights activist Michael Vick, and at the end of the year, the Eagles' ship completely sunk as they went 4-12 and fired everyone's favorite Arctic mammal. So, going into Nick Foles' second year, he got a new coach with former college mastermind Chip Kelly, who to this point was thought of as an intriguing coaching prospect. But Foles still started the year behind Vick, and throughout the year, the two traded off sparing starts here and there due to injury, until Foles finally became the permanent starter in a Week 9 game against the Raiders. And this game against the Raiders was fine. Foles just threw for 400 yards, 7 touchdowns, and no picks, with the best quarterback rating in NFL history. You know, just another Sunday afternoon for Nick Foles. So, to say the least, Nick Foles seemed to absolutely flourish under this Chip Kelly offense, as he finished the year throwing for 2,891 yards, 27 touchdowns, and only 2 interceptions on a mere 10 starts. All that along with the fact that he still holds the second best touchdown to interception ratio season ever, as well as the 4th best passer rating in a single season. And that was enough for him to make a Pro Bowl team in a stacked quarterback pool, but like, come on, there's clearly an imposter here. Anyways, Foles would have an okay third year, to be nice, and this season was nothing like his previous one at all. He did go 6-2 in his starts, but threw for 5 times the amount of picks as he did the year before, and ended the year with a broken clavicle. But hey, they were 6-2, so maybe they'll be able to rally for their fallen teammate. Let's see who their backup quarter... Oh, nah, and they were, as they ended up missing the playoffs behind Mark Sanchez, and in that offseason, Foles was traded away to St. Louis for Sam Bradford and a multitude of picks. Now, for the next 2 years, Nick Foles would show small flashes of his lone perfect season, but predominantly churned up some truly rancid performances. But after being imprisoned by the head coach equivalent of a cardboard box in Jeff Fisher and a whole year of backing up Alex Smith, then hey, he's back in Philadelphia. Unfortunately, he was a backup for this team, and going into the 2017 season for the Eagles, Carson Wentz had led this team to a 10-2 record, all while being the top MVP candidate until he shattered his leg against the Rams, which meant the logo of inconsistency itself was forced into action. And for better or for worse, he honored that title valiantly, as for most of the regular season, Foles was merely okay to below average, as the Eagles' elite defense carried Nicholas Edward Foles into the postseason. But then, while in the playoffs, Nick Foles goes even beyond his 2013 season heights and utterly incinerates every single team that dared stand in his way on his quest to the Super Bowl. And during St. Nick's reign of terror, he flopped his meat all over the Vikings in a 38-7 demolishment in the NFC Championship game, as well as a close win against the previous Super Bowl attendee Falcons. Now, just when you think his Cinderella story might end, you're proven wrong, because in the Super Bowl against the Patriots, Nick Foles matches Tom Brady blow for blow and wins the Lombardi Trophy as well as a Super Bowl MVP. But since this magical season, Nick Foles' career has been plagued with injuries and bad luck, and outside of Alshon Jeffrey ruining everything, Nicholas Foles has not had a real shot to prove himself. He bounced around from Jacksonville to Chicago, and now he finds himself in Indianapolis. And, you know, maybe there's a chance that one day he'll find himself right back where he started. But regardless of that really special career Nick Foles had, trust me, there are weirder ones. So hopefully you've heard some random trivia facts about this old guy who used to play for the Raiders in the 70s. Maybe you've heard that he played in 4 decades of football from the 40s to the 70s, or he's even played the most seasons out of any player ever with 26. But please, stick with me, because the career of George Blanda is a deep rabbit hole that you're not going to want to miss. So, George Blanda was taken by the Chicago Bears and was offered a monstrous signing deal from the face of the Bears and George Halas for a whopping $600. Yeah, the inflation nowadays is, crazy. Anyway, for the first 10 years of his career, George Blanda was an on and off quarterback who also had an interception received on his resume, which I'm not even going to begin to question how that got there. So after a decade of rotting away in Chicago, team owner George Halas wanted Blanda to be the team's permanent kicker, and to that Blanda just told him, "F that, I'm out then." So he decided to retire from the NFL and went to go play in a rival league, the AFL, signing with the Houston Oilers. Right, that's the logical decision. Now, George Blanda's time in Houston was interesting, but memorable regardless, as after 2 seasons in a whole new league, George Blanda made first-team All-Pro honors, breaking the record for touchdowns thrown in a year with 36, leading the Oilers to a 10-win season. And because why not, Blanda ended up winning the league MVP, something that he had never even come close to in Chicago. And with him leading the squad, the Oilers went into the playoffs and took down the Chargers in the championship game, and were named AFL champions, and Blanda wasn't too helpful, going 18 for 40 and throwing 5 picks. Jesus Christ. But don't you worry, because that was just the appetizer for the rest of Blanda's career. So in his next season, George Blanda takes the gridiron, coming off of an MVP season, and throws the most interceptions in a single season ever with 42 in a 14-game season. But wait, because Blanda continues to defy the laws of common sense, as he also threw 5 more interceptions in a one-and-done playoff loss, and get this, made the Pro Bowl that year. So 1 year after throwing the most touchdowns in a single season in NFL history to that point, he does a whole ass 180 and throws the most interceptions in a year. What a guy. So after a few more years in Houston, Blanda found himself wearing silver and black once the AFL-NFL merger happened, and there he would continue to add to his inconceivable legacy. Unfortunately, throughout his time with the Raiders, he rarely was able to play the quarterback position, but he was still able to have a 5-week stretch unlike any other we've seen before or since then. So the year is 1970. At this point, Blanda's been in the league for a pathetic 21 years and was the kicker for the Raiders. However, in week 6 of that year, the Raiders quarterback at the time, Daryl LaMonica, got hurt early, so in came Blanda to beat the Steelers 31-14. Come on now, that's light work for Blanda. Now, for the next week, week 7, the Raiders face off against the Chiefs, and LaMonica was back and took the starting job back from Blanda. But the Raiders needed a win or a tie to take the division lead over the Chiefs, and with 3 seconds left in the game, Blanda delivered in the clutch with a 48-yard kick and forced a tie with Kansas City, taking the division lead. Nice, so that's 2 wins in a row, almost entirely because of a 40-year-old man. And it does not stop there, as for week 8 against the Browns, LaMonica once again gets injured in the game, and Blanda comes into the game late into the 4th quarter to try and make a comeback. So pretty much immediately, he throws a touchdown pass to tie the game up, and after the Browns turned it over on downs, man, they left too much time on the clock for the GOAT as the Raiders quarterback trots onto the field for the game-winning 52-yard field goal, and it goes in again. Another win off of Blanda's foot. Now, after 3 weeks in a row of this absolute madness, the Raiders handled the Broncos with LaMonica getting hurt again and George Blanda coming in for the rescue. And for the final week of this 5-week stretch from heaven, LaMonica was healthy and played the entire game, but was still able to set Blanda up for a chance at a game-winning field goal to beat the Chargers. And as always, Blanda delivered. And after 26 seasons in the NFL, George Blanda retired 1 month before his 49th birthday with so many records to his name, I wouldn't even know where to begin. But I want to tell you about one more quarterback who truly goes under the radar of modern NFL fans, and that guy is the original short king and Boston legend, Doug Flutie. So Doug Flutie's wild story actually starts before the NFL, as during his time in Boston College, Doug Flutie was absolutely incredible, won a Heisman Trophy, and completed one of, if not the most memorable play in college sports history with this Hail Mary.
Flutie flushed, throws it down, caught! by Boston College. I don't believe it. It's a touchdown.
So you'd think that someone of that caliber and talent would be taken really high up in the draft. Well, you would be wrong. So wrong. Because Doug Flutie was taken in the 11th round of the draft by the Rams. Now, Doug Flutie fell this far in the draft for two reasons and two reasons only. One, he was really short, and two, well, he was already drafted by another league. Because while the NFL was doing its thing, Flutie decided to sign with the USFL, and yes, this picture is real. This resulted in Flutie being selected by the Rams 285th overall, the lowest a Heisman Trophy winner has ever been drafted at. Anyways, eventually Flutie's rights were traded to the Bears, and after the USFL folded, Flutie came over to Chicago to play in the NFL. And after 4 games with the Bears, they decided to get rid of him, and Flutie found himself in New England. And there, he had a solid enough year for them in 1988, even leading the Patriots to 5 wins in 6 weeks. But after that season, Doug Flutie was almost blackballed due to his height, so he decided to take his talents to a rival league in the CFL. And there, you know, he messed around and became the consensus best player in Canadian football history, winning 6 MVPs, 4 championships, throwing for 41,355 career yards and 270 touchdowns. So, you know, not bad, right? But because Doug Flutie's on this list, he decides to return to the NFL and signed with the Buffalo Bills in 1998. And that's when all hell broke loose. Because literally, in the first game of the season, the Bills starting quarterback Rob Johnson got injured, and in stepped Doug Flutie, hungrier than ever before. So after finally getting a fair shot, 12 years since he was drafted into the league, now at the age of 36, Flutie was able to have a Pro Bowl season, winning Comeback Player of the Year, and led the Bills back to the playoffs for the first time since Jim Kelly was the guy at quarterback. Now, unfortunately for Doug Flutie, he fizzled out for the Bills as he was benched for their wildcard game the next year, which meant that Flutie had to watch from the sidelines as the Bills' hopes and dreams got ripped straight out of their chest by a fluky lateral play. See what I did there? Fluky? Flute? So to end off Flutie's career, he backed up some pretty solid quarterbacks like Drew Brees and Tom Brady. Now, in his final year in 2005, the Boston legend went back to New England and completed arguably, no, not arguably, the greatest final career play in the history of the NFL with this magnum opus of a play.
Drop kick for the extra point. It is up and in. Can you believe that?
So with that being said, if you enjoyed this video, then consider subscribing if you think I've earned it, and like and comment because it really helps the channel a lot. Also, if you like this video for some reason, then watch this video right here where I break down who the worst draft bust ever is. The video's really good, trust me. Anyways, until next time.